Welcome back to Fresh Outlook, everybody. Just over a week ago, Alexis Tsipras stepped onto the podium in Athens and punched the air, saying, I call on you to say no to big ultimatums. I call on you to say no to blackmail. Turn your back on those who would terrorize you, a.k.a. give you money. Guess what? The Greek people listened. They overwhelmingly said no to paying back their European creditors. And now, a week later, that same man, Tsipras, is back figuratively on his knees, begging for more money from the wealthier European nations to keep his country from failing. Take a look.
At last count, Greece ranked the 16th most visited country in the world. But lately, visitors may notice a particular tension stemming from the nation's economy. In 2001, Greece replaced its own currency with the euro. However, Greece now owes in the neighborhood of 320 billion euros to the International Monetary Fund. The country has missed loan repayments and is running dangerously low on liquidity. The country needs money and has turned back to the EU. The last time Greece found itself in a similar situation, the EU proposed austerity steps, which set off unrest in Greece. Now, with cash machines spitting dust, the concern has hit the business community.
Because I'm young, but I think people are terrorized with this news of banks being closed, and I think the shops won't have any movement this week. The sales are going to go down drastically.
Greece proposed a new package of reforms in exchange for a new bailout and debt restructuring. Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel said that no deal with the Greek government could be negotiated until after a referendum on Sunday in which Greeks will be asked to accept or reject an offer made last week by Greece's creditors.
Today we have made it very clear that should the Greek government ask for negotiations, for example after the referendum, we would of course not refuse.
But if negotiations fall apart, Greece could abandon the euro and fall into an even more dire economy.
We're back live on set now here at Fresh Outlook. I am joined by the Fresh Outlook think tank, Dr. Bart Rossi, political psychologist, Sebastian Aulich, an international lawyer and consultant, Jose Lopez, a physicist at Seton Hall University. Sebastian, I'll start with you. Mitt Romney said about the auto industry back in 2012, let them go bankrupt and go through a structured bankrupt and let them rebuild and let them have their economy work according to the free market again. Should we prop up this failing nation or should we bail them out?
Well, nobody likes bailouts, whether that's in the United States or that's in Europe. Technically, I believe they are already bankrupt. The only choice they have, do they stay in the Eurozone and do they accept the reforms that the creditors are demanding, or do they get out and introduce their own currency? Whichever they do is going to be very painful for them. If they do stay, they have to implement austerity measures, which are very harsh for them. If they go out, they have to issue their own money, and pretty much they're going to be one of the poorest countries in the whole European Union.
Jose Lopez always points to Greece and says, this is why liberalism, progressivism, socialism does not work. Because eventually you run out of other people's money, to paraphrase Margaret Thatcher.
When I walk around saying I'm Logan Crawford, I say that.
Exactly.
The majority of the time I don't say that. I think Greece is one of these countries, I was telling Dr. Rossi earlier, that's lived on its legacy and continues to live on its legacy. I mean, when you think of Western culture, you think of Greece. And I think this is the only reason they're really relevant in this conversation right now, because it is a complete tourist economy they have there. When you look at technological development that's coming out of Greece, it's near zilch. I mean, and that's part of the problem. They don't have a very diverse economy, and they're not really producing anything, I would say, of international merit aside from the ruins of ancient Greece and the culture that still exists there to this point. And I think that's part of the problem.
Doctor, your thoughts?
Well, you know, psychologists like to talk about conflict and the conflicts that we have as individuals. This is a country in conflict, and it's really a classic approach avoidance conflict. You know, what are they going to do here? Are they going to go with this strict, conservative approach and have people not have jobs and austerity measures? That's rough. On the other hand, what else do they do? You know, how do they avoid things, but what do they approach? And for me as a psychologist, I don't know what the answer is for them, because they don't seem to have a way out of this. You know, most of the time you can think of traits and characteristics that people have, individuals, and try to make it work. In this case, with a country, I don't know what works for them. It doesn't seem like they're going down the right road in any respect to make it happen. You know, how do they grow the economy? How do they make this successful? There's no answer. And there's no traits or characteristics that seem to bring this to the forefront where it's going to work. It bothers me.
And just to make a point about this conflict is, last Sunday they voted no to the bailout measures that they proposed, and on Thursday, after they said no, they introduced almost the same measures that previously they rejected. So there's a conflict.
Yeah.
The society says no, we don't want it, but on Thursday they said yes, we may need to do it.
But we know what's happening here. Tsipras is getting in front of his people saying, don't be terrorized by the creditors, giving that big national rally cry. Then when he goes to the creditors, guess what? I'm going to tighten my belt. I'm going to cut pay. I'm going to privatize. I'm going to increase the VAT. And the reality is he's going to get the $59 billion from the EU, and he's going to continue along his path of liberalism.
So it's becoming like he was supposed to be something different. He wasn't wearing a tie. He wasn't supposed to be a politician. He's becoming a politician right now.
We've seen that. Where else? Oh, that's right. In this country that's being bankrupted right now. Yeah, we do see similarities, obviously, between the United States.
Sexy Alexis, he doesn't have credibility right now. He says one thing to the voter, vote no to those measures, and then on Thursday says, yes, we are going to do it. And now he also doesn't have credibility when he talks to the European partners. Should we believe this guy? He tells his own people, don't accept it, but then on Thursday he says, yes, I'm going to do it. Believe me, I'm going to do it. There's no credibility at this point.
No, he doesn't have credibility. And a very successful business guy once told me, you can't cut your way out of a problem or tax your way out of a problem. I mean, you can't be too liberal, you can't be too conservative. You have to make it work. You have to look at how to grow an economy and how to make it function. And I don't think it's going to work for them. They can't tax enough. They can't grow the economy enough. And they don't have a strategy in place. That's what bothers me the most. And it doesn't seem like, to me, as a psychologist, that they're interested in a strategy.
I mean, that's a very good point. They don't have a strategy. They don't know, do we want to stay in the Eurozone or do we want to get out? Yeah. I think the decision should be made before they started any kind of negotiations. And at that point, we just don't know.
Now, Iceland made a decision not to pay back its creditors and basically said, you know what, you've loaned us a lot of money, we're going to go it on our own. And it's kind of worked out for that country. So perhaps going bankrupt is the best thing, because another $59 billion bailout just means that's another $59 billion they own. And if they're calling their lenders terrorists,
right,
there's a problem. Jose, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree, and that's the problem. It's you don't have a plan. So what do you go back and forth there? There has to be a strategy. I mean, it's almost an identity crisis, I would say, as a country. I mean, they see themselves as a great culture and a force in the world, but the question is, what do you want to give to the world? The world can't just give to Greece, and then Greece is not working with the world in progress, and that's the big question. They're not answering that question.
Yeah, and I think that's why this problem is resonating, why it's going around the world and everybody's talking about Greece. Because if they don't have a plan and they're not thinking about a plan, what about the other countries? Are they really on board with doing something with their economy? What's the next one that's going to fall? Where are we going to have more problems?
Yeah, and the Eurozone is struggling.
It's really struggling. About our ego that a small nation, usually a regional problem, but now everybody talks about them. Yeah. Now we have New York Stock Exchange going down because everybody's worried what Greece is supposed to do.
Yeah.
What do you think the impact would be on the Eurozone if Greece were to go bankrupt?
That's actually a very good question, because we don't really know what the impact is going to be. We know that Italy, Spain, and Portugal are extremely indebted as well. So if Greece gets out of the Eurozone, there's always a threat that this contagion is going to spread, and then there's going to be run on banks in Spain, Italy, and Portugal, and you're going to have a lot larger economies being in the same situation. So I believe that Barack Obama and Secretary Lew, they got involved this week. They made phone calls to Tsipras, Sexy Alexis, and they made phone calls to Angela Merkel trying to broker the deal, because they don't want that contagion to spread, especially.
What's your take on Angela Merkel's stance on all this?
I actually would support her fully what she's doing. I believe that she has to respond to her own constituencies, and we know bailouts are not popular. They're not popular in the United States. They're also not popular in Germany, and she would have to take public money from the taxpayers' money and give it to Greek people. And she would have to explain it, somehow sell it. And just think about this. Greece just recently introduced another issue, that is their owed money that were borrowed by the Nazis. So in the middle of those negotiations, they just throw in Adolf Hitler to make it even harder for her to sell any kind of deal to their own people.
Right. So there's a lot of inflammatory language that's being used.
Yeah, and I think she's going down the right road here because she's really pushing this so that they would come up with a strategy, a plan. And of course, they're really not answering that question. They're not responding to her in any positive way. And again, this is why I think more countries are up there as the question marks now in the stock exchange.
Yeah, and I would say more so the German population. I mean, I've talked to many Germans about this from the scientific community about this, and their perspective is, yeah, that they feel there's a freeloaders, the Greek freeloaders, and they don't want to continue this. They feel it's like the your cousin that just keeps asking you for money, and you just have to keep giving them money, and eventually, well, you got to stop because you're not helping them.
Exactly. Well, now you've talked about the whole conservative approach to government, right? Exactly. People get tired of supporting other people.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's larger, more powerful countries tired of supporting the people who have a very nice lifestyle, who have very good incomes, who are working very short weeks. All right, we've got a whole lot more to talk about when we come back. It's time for our lightning round. We look at the week's top stories in lightning fast fashion after this.